Before we start this video, a large thank you to Josue, Kate, Chris, Maxwell, Freeze, Epic, Sean, and King for their support on Patreon. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody. So let's start by opening up our poison effect script. In this video, we're going to finalize the poison system for this effects system. In the next video, we can move on to something else. So on the poison effect system, first we want to check and see if our character is poisoned. And that will be under character.characterstatsmanager.isPoisoned. And if we are poisoned, we want to do some things. We want to damage our character. We want to deduct some of our poison amounts that we currently have. And remember, this is going to be ran every effect tick or gang tick, which is roughly every second. That's how we have it set up in the character effects manager. So the logic in here is ran once every tick. And again, tick is just a word I'm using for a frame of reference for time. So one tick is about 1 second. Now we're going to say if the poison amount is greater than 0, do some damage. If the poison amount is not greater than 0, then that means it must be over with. So let's set our is poisoned to false. And then let's go down here also on the character stats manager and set the poison amount to 0, just in case it goes into the negatives somehow. Else, we can come right below that, as in if the character is not poisoned, we can say character.character effects manager, and then we want to simply look for the list of our timed effects, and we want to remove this effect, and that will just clear it from the pool, because when the poison is 0, obviously you're no longer poisoned, so we need to notify our character effects manager and let it know that we no longer want this effect in the pool of active effects. And then we can save that. And before I leave, just here where the damage player comment is, I'm going to leave a debug.log. I'm just going to say damage. So we know this is actually firing, and we can see that in the console, so we know the code is running. The reason why I'm not actually damaging the player right now is because it's something I will explain in a bit later. So down here on the poison surface, this is an older script on trigger stay. Delete everything below the if character.isPoisoned returned. And then make a poison buildup effect variable. You call it whatever you want. I'm going to call mine poison buildup. And we're going to say that's equal to instantiate, go to our world effects manager.instance, and then instantiate our poison buildup effect. Now, if you want to, you can go to the poison buildup effect, and you can make the poison amount variable public, or the buildup amount variable. I don't think it's public right now. I'm just going to check. No, it is not. So, yeah, if you wanted to, you could come here, and you can make this public. But the way I like doing it, instead of making this public, what I would do is I would make different kinds of poison buildup effects and just make copies of, using the same script, just make different versions of it and use those in the world effect manager. So you have like a deadly poison buildup or a subtle poison buildup. So that's why I actually don't make this public, because I just use a different script pool altogether and I just make more variables in the world effects manager. But the choice is yours. It's honestly, both things will yield the same result. So after that's done, say character.character effects manager, and we don't have the character because this is a character stats manager variable. So replace this with a character manager variable. Again, this is a very old script. This is back before we had everything kind of grabbed from our character manager a long, long time ago. So just change everything that says character stats manager to character manager here. And then you can say character.character effects manager .timed effects .add poison buildup. All right. Again, let's just say character.character stats manager .isPoisoned, because that's going to create an error there. And change these to character manager. Now, there is going to be an artifact of doing this, and that's that we're basically going to be adding a poison buildup effect, a new poison buildup effect, every single time to the character. Make sure you have a poison surface, make sure it's a trigger, and add the poison surface script to it. I'm using a box collider that's a trigger. I don't need this poison buildup amount variable anymore because I assigned that from the script pool, so I'm deleting that. And as I just said, we're going to run into a small problem. If I were to step in this right now, it would add a bunch of poison buildup variables to us. So before we go on, let's actually create the scriptable objects for the poison buildup and poison effects. And let's drag those into the world manager, the world character effects manager, because I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here. So, okay, so poison buildup effect and poison effect. And again, if you want multiple different kinds of poison buildups, make multiple of these effects and give them different values. And each of those buildups will have its own unique poison that it causes as well, because you can change the poison damage effect from that buildup effect. All right, so let's drag these into the world character effects manager here. And I'm just going to check these. Yep, okay, that looks good. And now I'm going to go back into the script here. and this is under the poison buildup effect. I'm going to remove that decaying amount that takes away some poison buildup every tick, because we're going to have to handle this a little bit differently. So let's delete that code that I just deleted there. What we want to do is copy and remove this effect right at the end. So it's only going to fire once. So basically at the end of process effect for poison buildup, we want to remove it. Okay. And on the poison surface script, what we want to do is want to say if character effects manager timed effects you would think we'd use contains here for poison buildup, right? We'd say return, because that way it only adds one at a time and it can't add a bunch. Well, this actually won't work. So what we need to do instead is use our handy dandy effect ID. You can see here that each of these effects have an effect ID, which I usually have for multiplayer, but this also serves a purpose for circumstances like this. So what you want to do is give them unique effect ID. I'm going to say 70 and 69. I'm just throwing random numbers here. Honestly, you should write this down and make it something you remember. I do that with Nephilim as well. I have a database full of them. But yeah, just put the numbers here that you're going to know what each effect is. And then let's go back into the tutorial series, Poison Surface script. And what we're going to do is we're going to check each active effect by using a for each loop. And we can say for each, let's just copy and paste this here, character.characterEffectsManager.timed effects. So we say for each effect in our character effects manager timed effects, we can say if effect.effectID is equal to poison buildup.effectID, then we're going to simply return. And this will make it so equals, not a single equal, sorry. This will make it so we can't just add 10 poison buildups at once. You'll only have one, no matter how long you're in the surface, until that one deletes itself at the end of its tick, which it does. And then another one is added. So because of this, we need to make a cleaner way to basically decay the buildup effects over time when you're not affected by them. So this is really simple. We can make a private virtual void here, and we can call this reset buildups, or even better, actually, I can give that a cooler name. Let's make it more clear. We could say process buildup decay, or decays. It's giving me an error here because I can't make a virtual class private. I'll fix that in a second. So we could say if character stat manager poison buildup is greater than 0, then we want to say character stats manager poison buildup minus equals 1, or however much you want it to decay per game tick. And anything that you have that's a buildup and that you want to decay over time, put it in here. You can give it its own unique decay amount if you like. And also, if you're like me, make sure you switch this private virtual void to a protected, because obviously virtual means it can be inherited from the class. And if it's private, it can't be inherited from the class above, or changed rather. So now let's go over to our process all timed effects, and inside the place where the tick effects take place, so this is inside the brackets or the if statement of the tick timer, we want to say process tick or build up decay. And that means after the effects are processed, you will get all your buildups. They will decay by however many points you have them to decay per game tick. It's going to make a comment here, decays buildup effects over game time. And also I'll make a comment too above this, and I'll just say processes all effects or active effects over game time. Very clear, very straightforward. All right, I'm going to take a sip of tea. Okay, moving on. So now if we were to go into this pool here, I think this should work out now. I'm going to click on my player so we can see what's going on. And I am going to scroll down to the poison buildup here. It's at 0, and the timed effects, there's nothing in there. So let's step into the pool. You can see, yep, the poison buildup is going up an adequate amount, as it should, per tick. And we only ever have one poison buildup timed effect on our character. Perfect. That is exactly where it's intended. And when we get out, and you can see the poison buildup is in fact decaying. That is perfect. So we need to bring back our health bar. So let's copy this poison buildup decay. Let's go to the player effects manager, because we're going to override it. Because in the player effects manager, obviously, we're going to have a UI bar that's unique to only the player and not any other AI in your scene. So let's have override process build decay pop up here. And let's just delete everything inside, including the base. And let's paste the original code and change character to player. And now the only thing we're going to do here, you can do this a multitude of ways. We want to basically enable our game bar when we have poison buildup and disable when we don't. So I'm going to use a little trick. So we have to check every frame for it. And I'm going to say poison buildup bar dot set poison amount. And then we're going to pass the poison buildup. Okay, there we go. Oh, we're going to do a math F round to integer for that. So let's just type in here math f.round to int. It doesn't want to autocomplete for me. There we go. I'm going to take a sip of tea. All right, cool. So now we're passing the build up to our bar, but it's still not enabled. So what we want to do here is say poison build up bar.gameObject.setActive true. And then we can actually go to the build up bar, and this is just one of many ways. We can say if it's greater than or equal to 0, then we can go to the build up bar here. And inside the set poison build up amount, we can say if the current poison build up is less than or equal to 0, we can just disable this game object. So we're just letting the game object disable itself after this function is called. Again, you can do this any way you want. There's a multitude of ways. You just want to simply activate it when we have build up and deactivate when we don't. So over here now on the poison effect, we're going to say player manager, player equals character adds player manager. So we're doing a cast. And inside this, we're going to say if the player is not null, meaning if the effect is being processed on a player and not on a regular character or AI, then we can run this logic. And what we want to do then is say player.player effects manager. We want to grab our poison bar so we can make that public. Let's go over here, and the poison amount bar, we can just add public here to this. And this is another way we can do this. And then let's go over here to the poison effect again, and we could say poison amount bar dot set poison amount, and we can pass the poison amount like so. We also need to do a math f round to int again. Okay, that looks good. And now let's go and take a look inside the poison bar script. And let's actually copy this and paste it down here as well. But then we're going to set it to 0. That's if there is no more poison. So if the poison amount is greater than 0, set it. If it's not, then set the poison amount. But we're going to set it to -1. Why is this? Well, let's check this out. If we set it to 0 even actually will work. We don't even need to set it to -1. Let's just set it to 0. And then likewise, as we did on the other script, we can say if poison amount is greater than 0, we can say game object set active to true, else game object set active to false. So basically, we're just turning it on and off from here when we use the set poison amount function. You can do this the exact same way on the set poison buildup. Just wanted to show you a couple different ways to do it, just for the sake of doing it like that. So now let's go into the poison pool. You can see my UI pops up in the top left corner, and it is going up. And then when I leave, I don't know if you guys can see that, it is going down very slowly in increments of 1, but it is definitely going down. So if we go back in, it goes up again. All right, that's cool. But now let's make sure our poison bar actually appears when we get the build up to 100. So I'll just stand in here. Yep, looks good so far. And yeah, so there's a tick in between where it doesn't appear, and I know why, so we can fix that too. But it's not decaying. Did I leave something out? I must have, because it's not working. So that's the only conclusion I can arrive at. All right, let's go to the poison. Yes, okay, it's not going down. Poison amount is at 100 right now. So it has to be the poison effect. So let's go to that. Yes, I am not deducting an amount. So copy this. If the poison is greater than 0, we're going to say character.characterStats manager poison amount minus equals 1, or however much you want to decline it per game tick. Okay, that should be it. It should be working now. Let's save that. Also, let's go in here and just test this real quick. Yes, it is indeed working, but we still have the issue where this bar waits a full tick before it appears, and that is an easy fix. That is just because the poison is on a tick system and it disappears, but then doesn't reappear until the next game tick starts. So let's go remedy that right now. Let's jump into our world character effects manager first. And what we're going to do is create a header for poison. And we want to add a particle effect, and optionally to a sound effect if you want, that will proc when you are poisoned. So I'm going to make a game object for our poison effects, and then I'm going to make a public audio clip for our sound effects. And you can call that whatever you want. I'm just going to call mine poison effects and poison SFX, as in sound effects and just general effects, called particles or whatever is really more clear to you. Don't feel the need to copy my naming conventions exactly. Okay, so back over here, let's delete the current and default poison particle effects, because we don't need those right now in the game. We're going to have a nicer system. Let's make a header called active timed, or we can call it active effects, or let's think of a better name, active visual effects. And this is in basically the particles that I'll play with your timed effects. Yeah, I'm gonna call it timed effect visual effects. And let's make a list of game objects. And this is basically every time you get a timed effect thrown on your character, if it has an effect particle that accompanies it to show you that you are, poisoned or whatever, we can add it to this list and it will stick to your player. And it will just give it some kind of a visual cue. All right, let's save that. And I'm going to scroll down here, and we're also going to need to make 2 new functions as well. But first, let's jump over to the poison build-up effect. Let's scroll down here. And let's fix that issue where it's the poison bar is popping in a whole tick later. So the end of the poison buildup effect, we can see right here where it says if our poison buildup is greater or equal to 100, that is when we want to instantly initialize it. So first let's say player manager, player equals character as player manager. So we're going to do a cast. And we're only going to use this if it runs on the player, not the character or an AI. So we can do this by just simply saying or checking if player does not equal null. Because if it doesn't equal null, then we must be running this on a player. And then inside that, we're going to say player.player effects manager dot poison buildup bar dot set amounts, and we set it to the poison amount. And that is just going to turn on the poison buildup bar because of the way we have the functionality set up. Make sure you do a math f round to int. Probably going to have to do that. And then it should work fine. I'm going to take a sip of tea. All right, cool. So yeah, that is working, or that should work as intended. We'll test that momentarily. Now below, let's simply say character.character effects manager. And then we want to add a particle effect to our list of particle effects. So we're going to say character.character effects manager dot adds timed effect particle. And let's just pass an instantiated version of our poison effect particle from our world character effects manager. All right, let's jump back over to the character effects manager script, and let's actually create that function because we don't have it made yet. And let's create a function to remove as well. So I'm going to call it public virtual void add timed particle, and then public virtual void removed timed particle. And let's make it so both of these require a game object to be called. Okay. All right, let's make sure that these 2 functions require a game object to be called. And then let's save this script. Let's minimize this. Let's find our enum script, and we're going to make a new enum. This enum is going to be for types of particle effects that can instantiate on your character after they've acquired some kind of effect like poison or curse or frost. So I'm going to call this public enum effect particle. And I'm just going to create one for now because it's the same for any other effect you have. And I'm simply going to call it poison. Okay, let's go and minimize that and save it. And then let's go to our character effects folder. Let's right click here. Let's create a new C# script. And I'm going to call this, let's call it timed effect particle. Actually, we can honestly just call it effect particle, and that's fine. All right, let's open this up. Let's make it derived from our namespace, delete the start and update functionality, and all we're going to need in this class is that new enum we've just created. So let's say namespace sg. Let's drop the new enum in here. I think we call it effect particle. Let's call this effect type or effect particle, make it public because we need to access it from another class. Why is that white and not green? Let's save. And I have an error. Oh, I've called it the same thing as my new script. Whoops. Okay, so let's call this effect particle type. There we go, and save that. Now that should remedy the problem. All right, looks good. Let's add type to this so it's not a variable of itself. So it's effect particle type. Make sure it is effect particle type. So it is our enum. Now make a poison particle that you want to instantiate in your character when they're poisoned. Put this script on it, and make sure you set the effect type to poison. It's the only one I have, so I can't change it. You might have more. Go to the World Effects Manager, drop that new game object prefab in there, like so. And then let's go over here on the Character Effects Manager, and let's make sure we change the Remove Timed Effect Particle to require an effect particle type instead of a game object. You'll see why momentarily. Okay, in the Add Timed Effect Particle function, let's create a variable of type game object. Let's call it Effect Game Object. Let's say that is equal to instantiate the effect. And then down right below that, we are simply going to say timed effect particles dot add effect game object. So it adds it to our list and instantiates into the scene. Then we're going to make a for loop in the remove timed effect particles. And then we're going to simply say for I equals timed effect particles dot count minus 1 if I is greater than minus 1, I minus minus. And this is going to iterate through all the possible timed effect particles we have. And we're going to say if timed effect particles dot get component, or if timed effect particles I dot get component, and then we're going to get the component of our newly created scripts, which is effect particle. Then we're going to say dot effect type, which is the variable on that script, is equal to the effect type you passed. Then we want to destroy this game object. So destroy timed effect particles I. And then to clean the list, we would say timed effect particles dot remove at I. Make sure you put a double equals there, or you're going to get an error, as I just did. And timed effect particles dot remove at I. Okay, save. Now let's jump over into our poison effect scripts. And right when you're changing the poison to 0, you want to say character dot character effects manager dot remove time effect particles and pass the effect type of poison. And that will remove every poison related particle inside of your character. All right, so let's jump back over to the character effects manager. Make sure when you're instantiating it, you put a comma and then pass your build up transform, which is the area on our character where the effects are instantiated. Otherwise, it will instantiate in the scene. Just add 0 over there where that other one is. So if you come in here now, you can see this is working fine. Let's change the poison amount to 1. And does this delete off of us? Yes, it does. So that is working as intended. So what if you want to add a sound effect to your character while they're poisoned? Well, go to your poison effect and add an audio source, and you can add a looping effect, which is what Souls has. So I'm going to quickly drag one into my project here from Nephilim. I know you guys can't hear this, but it's there. And then make sure you check on is looping. So this will be the effect that's stuck onto the poison itself, and we'll make a sound effect. Just a general looping noise, but also we can have a sound that plays when the poison has proc to alert you. So I have another sound effect here called poison alert. And down here in the poison buildup effect, right at the end, after we're basically adding the new poison effect to a character, say character sound effects manager play sound effects, and then pass the world character effects manager instance poison sound effect. And this will be an alert noise that can play. This is optional, obviously, that lets you know when your character has become poisoned. If you want, you can make sure this only plays for the player by saying if player does not equal null and doing the same cast. So at the end, this is the full result now. You can see we're standing in the poison pool. We are accumulating buildup. Let's wait until that gets to 100%. At that point in time, the poison bar should trigger, and I should hear the poison alert sound effect and the poison looping sound effect. And yes, that is exactly what happens. So that is 100% work as intended. If you made it this far, please be sure to drop a like and leave a comment. It genuinely helps with the series so much. Before we go, an important little comment on why I did not accumulate the damage, as I mentioned earlier, that I would explain. This is because in the next video, we're actually going to make the damage a static character effect that applies, or not a static character effect, sorry, a one-time effect that applies once. And because we're changing the damage to an effect that you can apply once just over the game tick, we can basically make the damage system exceptionally modular and give it a bunch of important instances where you can change things. Like, for example, if you wanted a certain trap or a certain damage type to provide a specific custom damage animation and a custom set of poison damage, or apply an effect like poison buildup while you're damaged, we can now do all of this through a character damage effect versus just applying damage values through a damage collider. And it's honestly a whole lot neater. If you ever change how damage is affected, you just got to change it from this one place instead of going to every single damage collider you have. It is just infinitely better. So in the next episode, we're going to do that. I will see you guys next time.